All right, then. Fancy a slice of that UK property pie, do we?
Who doesn't, eh?
But that deposit, though, bit of a king's ransom these days, isn't it?
It can be, yeah. A lot of folks get put off by that.
That's exactly why we've got this stack of articles here. All about property, but the twist is you don't need to be loaded to get started.
That's right. Making some quid from property, even if your pockets aren't exactly overflowing. That's the goal here.
So we've got the usual mix. Some articles give a broad overview of the UK market. Others are laser focused on this whole limited funds thing.
And I'll be honest, some of them sound a bit too good to be true, don't they? But that's why we're here, to sort the wheat from the chaff.
Exactly. So let's dive in, shall we? First off, give us the lowdown. What's the UK property scene looking like right now?
Well, demand is through the roof, that's for sure. Prices are climbing too. Good news if you're selling, but can be a bit daunting if you're just starting out.
Tell me about it. Feels like you need to win the lottery just to get on the ladder.
That's where things get interesting. Because it's not all about buying a whole house, Loads of ways to get involved, even if your budget's a bit limited.
Right. That's good to know. Now, buy to let. Everyone's heard of it. But how's that working out in this market?
The basic idea is still the same. Buy a property, rent it out to tenants, Bob's your uncle. Get that steady income stream. Plus, there's always the chance the property's value will go up.
Sounds simple enough.
Mm-hmm.
But isn't buy to let the one that usually needs that huge deposit?
You're not wrong. And with prices the way they are, yeah, scraping that deposit together can feel impossible. But that's what makes these articles so fascinating. Loads of clever ways to, reduce that initial cash hurdle, even get rid of it completely in some cases.
Now you're talking. So spill the beans.
Mm-hmm.
What are these strategies, these no money down wonders?
Well, one that really caught my eye is this rent to rent. Bit of a head scratcher at first, I'll admit. Basically, you're managing the property, getting tenants in, all that, but you don't actually own the place.
Hold on. How does that even work? Is that even legal?
Oh, perfectly legal. As
Yeah.
long as you do it properly, you strike a deal with the landlord, rent the whole property off them. Often it's a multi-let, an HMO.
HMO. Sorry, remind me.
House in multiple occupation. Several tenants, all living in the same house, each renting their own room. So you rent the whole thing from the landlord, then you sublet the individual rooms. Profit's the difference between what the landlord's getting and what your tenants are paying.
So you're the one finding tenants, dealing with the day-to-day stuff, guaranteeing the rent to the landlord, and making your bid on the side.
Exactly. And HMOs, they can have quite good returns because you're getting that rental income from several tenants. But of course, it all depends on having a good agreement with the landlord and, being a decent manager.
Right, so good communication skills and a bit of property know-how are essential. What other options did we come across?
Another one that's intriguing is lease options. Almost like a try before you buy for property, you could say.
Ooh, I like the sound of that. Tell me more.
So, you negotiate with the owner, get the option to buy the property, but at a set price and within a specific time frame. In the meantime, you rent it, you might even sublet it.
So you're in, low upfront costs, potentially benefiting if the property goes up in value, and you've got the option to walk away if it's not for you. Sounds a bit too good to be true.
There's always a catch, right? These deals, they can be hard to find, and setting up the agreement, the legal side of things, it can be tricky.
So it's not all plain sailing then. Needs a bit of careful thought, these strategies.
Absolutely. No money down. It doesn't mean no brains required, does it? You still got to do your research, be smart about it.
All right. Now, what about someone who, likes the idea of property but maybe isn't ready to be a full-on landlord? Are there ways to dip a toe in without all that hands-on stuff?
Definitely. We found some alternative ways to invest in property, might suit different folks, different levels of risk they're comfortable with. One option is REITs, real estate investment trusts, they're called.
What are those then?
Companies, basically. They own and manage properties, ones that generate rental income.
So it's like buying shares in a property company.
That's the gist, yeah. You're exposed to the property market, but without the hassle of actually owning and managing a place yourself. You get dividends from the rental income, and you might benefit if the company's share price goes up.
Sounds like a good option for someone who wants a bit more of a hands-off approach. What if you're more of a, team player? Any way to pool resources with others?
Well, there's always property crowdfunding. That's really taken off in recent years. Online platforms, they let you invest smaller amounts in bigger property projects. You're in it with other investors.
Like those online fundraising sites, but for property.
Sort of, yeah. It's a good way to get involved, especially if you haven't got a lot to invest up front, But, the returns are likely to be lower than owning a property yourself, and you don't have as much control.
Makes sense. So we've got options for the hands-on investors, the laid-back ones, the team players, anything for those who love doing the research, sniffing at a good deal.
Ah, you're talking about the deal packager, aren't you?
Hit me with it. What do they do?
They're not flipping houses, they're flipping deals. They find these cracking property deals, negotiate them, package them all up nice and tidy. Then they sell them on to other investors, the ones who maybe don't have the time or the knowledge to find those opportunities themselves.
Property matchmakers, then, bringing the investors and the deals together.
Exactly. Needs a keen eye, that does. Spotting a property's potential, being a good negotiator.
Sounds perfect for someone who enjoys the research side of things. So with all these options, it seems like there really is a way into UK property for everyone, no matter your budget.
That's the beauty of it, isn't it? Diverse, always changing, always opportunities out there.
But before everyone rushes off to start their property empire,
Hold your horses. There's a few things we need to talk about first.
of course, can't forget about the potential pitfalls, can we?
Yeah, these no money down strategies, they sound amazing, don't they? But like anything worth having, there's always a flip side. Gotta be aware of the downsides, the things that could trip you up.
Right, and that's our job, isn't it? To
Sure.
point those out, make sure everyone's going in with their eyes wide open.
Yeah.
So where do we start?
Well, let's get the boring but important stuff out of the way first. The legal side of things. Some of these strategies, rent to rent, lease options especially, they can be a bit tricky, legally speaking. You've really got to make sure you're operating by the book, dotting your I's and crossing your T's, all that.
So don't just take someone's word for it, is what you're saying.
Exactly. Do your research, read the small print, and if in doubt, maybe have a chat with a solicitor.
Right, get that professional advice. Better safe than sorry. Now, what about hidden costs? Because no money down, it doesn't actually mean free, does it?
No, definitely not. You're going to have costs, even if you're minimizing that initial outlay. Rent to rent, for example. You might need to do a bit of work on the property, spruce it up a bit, or spend some money on advertising, getting those tenants in. Lease options, often there's an upfront fee for the option itself. Legal fees too, potentially. And even with crowdfunding, you've got those platform fees, and there's always the risk that the project doesn't go quite as planned. Could be delays, could be lower returns than you were hoping for.
So, yeah, you got to be realistic about the money side of things. Factor it all in. There's no such thing as a free lunch, is there?
No, not in property, that's for sure. And that brings me to what I think is probably the most important thing of all. Due diligence,
Yeah.
expertise.
Right. Finding these clever strategies is all well and good, but you've got to know what you're doing.
Couldn't agree more. Research is key. Understand the local market. What are properties actually worth? What kind of tenants are you likely to get? And that agreement you're signing. Go through it with a fine-tooth comb. Make sure you understand every little detail.
And even if you're a bit of a DIY expert, there are times when you might need to call in the professionals, right?
Absolutely. If you're struggling with the legal jargon or you're just not sure about a property, don't be afraid to get some advice. Solicitor, surveyor, maybe someone who's been in the property game for years, seen it all. Their knowledge can be invaluable, could save you a lot of hassle, a lot of money down the line.
So we've covered the legal stuff, the money side of things, the importance of research. Anything else our listeners should be thinking about when they're weighing up these no money down strategies?
I'd say it comes down to control and effort. How
Yeah.
much of each are you comfortable with? Some strategies, rent to rent, for example, they're quite hands-on, you're going to be busy. Others, like REITs, they're much more passive. It's about picking the right path for you, for your lifestyle.
So if you thrive on that hustle and bustle, love negotiating, love being involved in the day-to-day running of things, maybe rent-to-rent or deal packaging is for you. But if you'd rather take a step back, let someone else do the heavy lifting, then REITs, crowdfunding, those might be a better fit.
Exactly. It's all about finding that sweet spot, isn't it? The balance between the potential rewards and how much work you're willing to put in.
Right, so we've covered a lot of ground here, and it's pretty clear, isn't it? UK property investment, even on a budget, it's a complex game. Lots to learn, lots to think about.
It is, but it's also a fascinating game. And with the right approach, a bit of planning, a healthy dose of caution, it can be incredibly rewarding.
Now, before we wrap up, there's one more thing I want to touch on, the emotional side of property investment. Because it's not just about numbers, is it? Spreadsheets and profit margins.
No, definitely not. Property, it's tied up with all sorts of emotions, hopes, dreams, aspirations, and let's be honest, a fair bit of stress and uncertainty too.
Right, so No money down doesn't equal stress-free. What kind of mindset do you need to make a success of this?
Well, I'd say a good dose of realism for a start. These strategies, they can be brilliant, but they're not some get-rich-quick scheme. It takes work, it takes perseverance, and you've got to be willing to learn to adapt as you go along.
So yeah, it's a long game, this property lark, not a quick win.
Exactly. Patience, that's the key. And, it's probably not going to be all plain sailing. Might be unexpected expenses, things you didn't budget for, or those dreaded void periods.
Void periods, what are those?
That's when your property is sitting empty, no tenants, no rent coming in. Can really dent your profits if you're not careful.
Right, so it's not just about finding tenants, it's about keeping them, isn't it?
Absolutely. Tenant management, that's a skill in itself. But even then, even with the best planning, things can go wrong. So how do you stay positive when that happens? How do you keep going?
Well, I suppose having the right mindset is important.
It is, yeah. You've got to see those challenges as opportunities, really, a chance to learn, to refine your strategy. And remember, you're not alone in this. Having a good network, other investors, maybe a mentor, even just supportive friends and family, that can make a huge difference.
Right, having people to talk to, share experiences with, and celebrate the wins together, of course. Makes
Yeah.
it more fun, doesn't it?
Definitely. And speaking of wins, don't forget to celebrate those. Set yourself realistic goals, and when you reach them, give yourself a pat on the back.
Absolutely. Every achievement, no matter how small, it's worth acknowledging, isn't it?
It is, whether it's, getting that first rent-to-rent agreement signed or finding that perfect lease option deal or seeing a positive return on your crowdfunding investment, take a moment to appreciate that. It'll keep you going.
Stay motivated, stay informed, and don't be afraid to ask for help. Sounds like pretty good advice for anyone thinking about dipping their toes in the UK property waters.
It is, yeah. It can be challenging, but it can also be incredibly rewarding. Financially, of course, but also personally.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today, haven't we? All these different strategies, the legal stuff, the money side of things, the mindset you need, a real deep dive into UK property.
We have loads of options out there, from the more hands-on approaches to the more passive ones. And hopefully, we've given everyone some food for thought, some things to consider before they jump in.
So now it's over to you, dear listener. Which of these strategies has piqued your interest? What are your goals? What's your situation?
There's no one-size-fits-all answer, is there? It's about finding the right fit for you, the one that matches your circumstances, your aspirations.
So do your research, get those numbers crunched, and if you need a bit of guidance, don't be afraid to reach out to the experts.
And most importantly, enjoy the journey.
UK property, it can be a bit of a roller coaster ride, but it can also be a brilliant one.
On that note, I'll leave you with a thought. Imagine yourself, 5 years from now. You've built a successful property portfolio, starting with, well, next to nothing. What does that look like? How has it changed your life?
Take a moment to picture that future. Let it inspire you, guide you on your way. Until next time, happy investing.